Apex Legends Season 16 has brought a lot of changes to the meta with the addition of new legend classes and some legend reworks. Preface, my tier list is entirely subjective, and I'm not trying to offend anyone by not placing your main in S tier. What I love about Apex, despite all its flaws, is that they're constantly trying to balance the game, so at this point, there are no bad legends. I will not be ranking anyone below C tier, and while I'm thinking of each legend's utility in ranked, this is also not an Apex competitive tier list. All that being said, hope you enjoy the video. Let's get right into it. Starting off C tier, we have Revenant. Now again, not trying to offend anyone, but Rev definitely needs some love. After countless nerfs to his ultimate ability, it's now only good situationally. It's both very loud and doesn't last very long, and it needs a lot of team coordination to use to its full potential. If you're a solo queuer, then make sure you have a mic, otherwise you're just going to be in a situation where you put the ult down after your team has already engaged in a fight. His tactical ability is useful at times and can be handy in a pinch to either take an opponent's legend abilities away or just as a zoning tool, but there tends to be a lot of visual clutter which can be difficult to play around. His bread and butter now is definitely his passive ability, and there are some Revenant mains out there that use crazy movement tech like wall running, which is super sick, but I think even those players would admit that given the landscape, he's not in the best place right now. Next up, we have Rampart. Now Rampart got some shine in Season 13 after they buffed her amp covers and made Sheila mobile. And yes, because she's in the control class, she can now scan for the next ring, which is useful. But in my opinion, every other legend in that class is a better pick right now, and she definitely has her limitations. Sheila is super fun and hilarious to use at times, but a lot of players make the mistake of not playing behind cover or taking an angle, and are pretty vulnerable because of a lack of strafe speed. From what I've seen in my own experience, most of the player base now knows how to outmaneuver a Rampart player that has Sheila engaged in Season 16. Her passive is not always the most helpful, but once upon a time, I crushed the Spitfire. So if you're a Spitfire gamer, then more power to you. Her amp covers are situationally effective and are useful for barricading buildings, but I'll say if you're a Rampart player, don't forget to place a couple walls down for your team. I've definitely seen some cool Rampart tech where players will climb over their walls and super glide off of them, so something worth considering learning if you're a Rampart gamer. That being said, too often you're in a purgatory of placing your wall down, having it get destroyed, placing your wall down, having it get destroyed. And with where the meta is right now, it's too easy to fall behind with how fast the game is being played. Moving on to the C+ tier. I made some sub-tiers to categorize picks that, in my eyes, are in between tiers, so hopefully this helps you when choosing who to play this season. First up, we have Mirage, bro. Shout out my boy D-Haw. Now I really like playing Mirage. This was a Ranking the Legends from most to least fun video. He'd easily be S tier, and if you're looking to just maximize your fun potential, he might be your guy. He got a rework this season to his kit that makes him a lot more interesting. When going for an Invis-res, he and his ally now remain invisible for 3 seconds, which can make for some crazy risky reses in the middle of a gunfight. His clones are now only triggered by bullet fire and melee, and while this is a surface level buff, it's an indirect nerf. Let me explain. Before, you could send a decoy into a Watson fence, or a grenade, or a banger Gibby ult, and it would indicate where the enemy is, kinda like a pseudo recon ability, but because of the rework this can't be utilized anymore. His ultimate has a very fast cooldown, so you can usually use it a few times per game, which is really nice, but I'm not sure where he fits in the meta if you're playing in higher elo rank lobbies. And to top it off, he's in the Skirmisher class, which has the worst perk by design. For all the Mirage mains out there, I'd be curious to know what 2 legends you pick in a squad to maximize his kit. I don't have an answer, so please let me know in the comments. Sorry to all my Octane mains out there. In my opinion, he's also in this tier. Now that's not to say Movement Lords can't make him look like he's an S tier legend. And again, if we were ranking legends in terms of fun, he'd also easily be S tier. If you're a new player and want someone fun to play, maybe consider picking up Octane. His kit is very simple and effective when used correctly. I'd even go as far as to say he's a skill-based legend despite having an easy-to-use kit. What I mean by that is, the better the player, the more effective his kit looks. His jump pad is now very loud and outclassed by the movement abilities of some other legends, but his passive health regen is nice, and his stim is definitely his bread and butter and can definitely be used to get out of some dicey situations. But please stop stimming into fights without your team and dying first! Be better than that. I believe in you. Some fringe B tier picks now, kicking it off with Fusey Boy. With the addition of classes, Fuse definitely benefits from being in the Assault class. He can carry extra ammo, and that alone makes for a lot of inventory flexibility to better utilize his passive and be able to carry more grenades. He's obviously limited by a lack of character mobility in his kit, and his ultimate is better than it used to be, but in my opinion is only situationally effective and hard to use well. When enemies are captured, it highlights and traps them, but a lot of the player base play legends with movement abilities to be able to escape it, or in my case I personally don't always respect it and just push through it right before it lands. His Knuckle Cluster is a good zoning tool and also great for pestering teams and farming damage, and I'd much rather have a good fuse on my team than go against a good fuse on another team. They're so annoying. He definitely has his place, can be useful, and is super fun to play. But that being said, there may be better picks is all I'm saying. Next up we have Lifeline. Lifeline got a couple reworks to her kit that make her a lot more interesting. The care package now drops in 8 seconds instead of 14 seconds, and the slow penalty she gets when initiating a revive was reduced. Her tactical health drone is also really convenient for healing the white health of yourself and of your teammates. Because of the support class perk, not only does she gain access to support loot bins, but she can also craft teammate banners if you're unable to retrieve an eliminated teammate, which is actually kind of insane. There are a lot of benefits to running her, and she has a lot of utility in her kit that will help you win in a battle of attrition. Though to be honest, I maybe would have placed Mirage higher than Lifeline because I think that his Invis-Res is superior. I didn't because of the support class perk versus Mirage's skirmisher perk, and unfortunately I still just don't think she's been the same since Respawn removed her revive shield a few seasons ago. Not only that, but her passive is outclassed by Newcastle's passive now as well. If you're playing her, I think your approach and playstyle have to be pretty unique. You have to make sure you stay up when a battle starts so that you can res your teammates if and when they go down. But once they go down, you have to be comfortable playing aggressively to either make sure they get up, but in most cases you're really just baiting your teammates, and you have to be able to clutch up in those instances. Just don't forget you're running Lifeline because too often players will be too far from their teammates to even initiate her res, be too timid to get involved, or just forget that they're playing Lifeline altogether. Shout out the Lifeline mains that stuck with her through the darkest of times because things are definitely starting to look up. Moving on to the B tier. B tier doesn't mean bad. It actually means strong, viable, and balanced. It's not overpowered, but also not underpowered in my opinion. The first legend I have in this tier is Gibraltar. Now don't get me wrong, Gibraltar is still very strong in my eyes. His gun shield is crazy and allows you to win poke fights at distance, and not only that, if you're running say a Peacekeeper in a close quarters fight, just keep aiming down sights to have the gun shield engaged, and combined with his fortified perk where he takes 15% less damage, you should win 9 times out of 10, assuming you hit your shots. His bubble is still very useful, both in defensive and offensive utility, and you can res your teammates more quickly in his Q. And while his ultimate is still very destructive, and you can win some endgames, the cooldown time is very long, so make sure you're popping those ult excels. He benefits from having the support class perk, but unfortunately a lot of his best abilities when he was a staple meta legend are now a thing of the past because he's countered by the abilities of Mad Maggie, Seer, and Crypto. Gibby also has a massive hitbox, so you really have to be mindful of that in fights at any distance, and always utilize more cover than you think you need, otherwise you're going to get focused. The playstyle of a good Gibby player is difficult to master in my opinion because you have to think about your teammates first, and he's best used in an anchor playstyle. So if you're running Gibby this season or just looking to challenge yourself in your playstyle a little bit, be mindful of those things and I'm sure you'll still find success because he's still pretty insane. Next up in B tier is Vantage. I'm sure a lot of you have noticed a lot more Vantages echolocating around in your games, especially on maps like Broken Moon and Stormpoint. And I'm sure a lot of you have been marked or pestered by her and her sniper at distance, which can be super annoying to deal with. Personally, I love running Vantage. I think she's super fun to play and a super unique legend. Her Q is pretty useful for taking different angles, scouting paired with her passive, and always having a sniper to be able to fight at range is pretty useful for loadout versatility. Because she's a recon legend and now benefits from being able to get a beacon scan to see enemy locations on the map, you can run her in some unique team comps for a variety of playstyles if you and your squad are disinclined to run Bloodhound or Seer. Upon release, she was definitely a more polarizing pick and sparked a lot of debate in the community about whether or not she was actually good. I was in the camp that thought she was good, and if you think about it, having the potential to 2-tap someone across the map is pretty insane. You can play her aggressively by initiating pushes, getting the first knock in a team fight, or you can play her more defensively by holding a power position and being a deterrent to enemies thinking about taking your spot. And I honestly think her passive is more useful than people give her credit for. Seeing how many people are up on a squad, what legends are on the squad, and what kind of shields they have, that's a lot of intel. The problem with a lot of Vantage players though, is that they stay aiming down sights in their ultimate instead of playing at pace and using her sniper more intentionally. And the problem with her kit by design is that she doesn't really have usable abilities in close quarters, has a bigger hitbox, and as the game progresses she becomes less and less useful. Like Revenant 2, her ultimate requires some team coordination and communication because if you mark an enemy at range and your teammates can't help capitalize on the damage increase they would get on a marked enemy, then it's just ineffective damage. Not only that, but her ultimate is skill based, and what I mean by that is you have to hit your shots. If you're not hitting your shots, then her kit is kind of useless. Food for thought, but she's a really fun legend to play and can be really strong when played correctly. Some fringe A tier legends now. Kicking off who I placed in the B+ tier is Catalyst. Catalyst was another polarizing legend upon release, some saying she was really good and some saying she was underpowered. Some bugs with her kit have now been fixed, and when played correctly she can be super helpful on any team. Being able to reinforce or rebuild doors is actually pretty sick, and can really deter and slow teams that are pushing you in a building. It essentially makes it twice as difficult to break down doors as it takes 4 melee hits to break a reinforced door. I I think the right way to use her tactical ability, piercing spikes, is to use it in tandem with her passive ability to make it even more difficult for a team to push you. You gotta get creative with her Q in fights, but really her entire kit is designed to make life difficult for enemy teams and slow them down. It can be a zoning tool, or an application I've found for it is to use it to inflict damage to finish down players. Her ultimate Dark Veil raises a wall of ferrofluid that blocks her squad from view and temporarily slows anyone who passes through it. She's now in the control class, so she has the perk of being able to scan for the next ring. However, unlike her peers in that class, and largely due to her ultimate ability, she's actually very versatile and doesn't have to commit to hanging out in the building to be effective. Her ult is a good team rotation tool and can even be used offensively by splitting enemy teams and singling players out. Why she's not higher on my tier list though is that unfortunately what she does really well is done even better by some other picks. But I think you'll start seeing more and more casual and pro players alike running her as time and even this season goes on because of her versatility as a quote-unquote defensive legend in an offensive meta. The next legend I have in this tier is the gas daddy himself, Caustic. Ah yes, we all hate Caustic. Let's be honest, that's what makes him so good. He's hated because he's so strong, no matter what the meta is. I'd be curious to know how many Caustic haters out there have actually tried playing him for fun. Yes, for fun. Probably not many of you because there's this stigma around him and assumptions about players who play him in a non-competitive Apex setting. It's okay. I was one of those people once, and even went as far as to say he was my least favorite legend in the game. Recently though, I decided to play him to troll my friends and discover for myself how fun he is to play, especially as a controller player. Unlike Bangalore's smoke, you do get aim assist through his gas, and nobody is better at holding buildings and deterring enemy pushes than Caustic. Obviously, the success rate of taking fights in buildings with your gas trap setup isn't 100%, but it's honestly hilarious seeing the sweaty ball TTV Wraiths just stumped and slowed by your gas, and that alone is reason to try playing him. I'd encourage new players, or even people that just want to play casually and are turned off to Apex because of the skill gap, to try Caustic, because he's really beginner friendly in my opinion. Again, a really strong and simple kit. His ultimate ability, Nox Gas Grenade, is super strong and just funny, to me at least, when it hits, but of course some difficulty in using it effectively. Why he's not ranked higher is that he does better on maps with less open space like World's Edge and King's Canyon, and his abilities are better in tight spaces. Not gonna get into the controller versus mouse and keyboard debate here, but even if you're a mouse and keyboard player and you shy away from close quarters fights, try running him to build some confidence in those situations. The last legend I have in the B+ tier is Wattson. I'm sure you've noticed a trend. Every legend I have in this tier is in the control class. I think because of where the meta is at, really rewarding kills and playing aggressively, those with defense-oriented kits definitely suffer a little bit by design. Wattson is my highest ranked control class legend because of her skill ceiling and the variety of ways you can utilize her kit. Her fences aren't as much of a deterrent as Caustic's barrels, Catalyst spikes, or even Rampart's walls, but are still a deterrent to enemy pushes, and I think the best way to use them is to use them often and use them to show presence. Playing her offensively is also becoming more and more popular, and you can make some crazy plays on doors and within buildings, but you have to be really comfortable fighting in close quarters to be successful. The best part of her kit is definitely her ultimate, the Interception Pylon. When placed down, it absorbs grenades, tacticals that inflict damage, Horizon Q, or airstrikes, rendering them all useless, and it recharges the shields of you and your team. You can stack 2 ultimate accelerants in one inventory slot, so always carry ultimate accelerants either for your team or for yourself, because popping one ultimate accelerant recharges her ultimate to 100% immediately, which is kind of insane. It's easy to tell a good Wattson player from a bad Wattson player, and my advice would be to place her generator down as often as you can in fights, regardless if you're in the open or not. She's definitely got a learning curve, but if you're looking for a challenge, Wattson may be your girl. The next tier I have is the A- tier, and the legends I have in this tier are a little more difficult to use, unpopular by pick rate, and even experimental, for lack of a better term. First legend I place in this tier is Ashe. Admittedly, I'm a little biased, but I think Ashe is criminally underrated and misunderstood. She has a higher skill floor and ceiling, and I think a lot of people are turned off to playing her because she can be a little boring. But even those that are anti-Ashe can't deny that her kit has its uses. She's best when played aggressively, and her ult phase tear is great for covering distance and closing the gap quickly when pushing opponents. It is also a great tool to escape dicey situations quickly, but be mindful of the fact that it's a one-way ticket, so you have to commit. And when used as an escape tool, enemies can follow you. And the marker to place her ult can be a little finicky, so it definitely takes some practice to be a reliable tool. Her tactical arc snare is objectively underpowered and can be easily escaped by many legend abilities in a plethora of ways, which is definitely unfortunate. But situationally, it can be just enough to make life difficult for enemy teams and is a great zoning tool, almost like a Diet Wattson fence. What makes her great though in my opinion, and this doesn't get talked about nearly enough, is her passive ability. It allows her to see deaths across the map, and you also have the ability to scan enemy death boxes to get reads on where enemy teams are. As an assault legend, having a recon ability like this is a huge benefit and gives really unique intel that can help your team decide how to rotate and where to expect enemy teams to come from when making macro decisions. If you're an aggressive player or want to become an even better IGL, don't sleep. Moving on, I have Crypto as the next and final legend in this tier. In my opinion, Crypto is probably the most difficult legend to play in the entire Apex Legends roster, which also makes him one of the most difficult to master. Also not necessarily the most fun legend to play either, which is why his pick rate is so low, but his utility, especially this season, can't be denied. With reworks to Seer and Bloodhound making them slightly less overpowered, Crypto is definitely a more viable and unique option in the recon class. His entire kit is centered around his drone. He can do some pretty cool things with it. He can recover teammate banners remotely, use respawn beacons remotely, and also scan survey beacons remotely, which in all honesty is pretty useful for extending games and staying alive. It's easy to tell a good crypto player from a bad crypto player, and a lot of people make the mistake of just staying in his drone for too long and being too far away from their team to be able to help, so it's tough to find the right balance and play him effectively. And like some other legends, his ultimate ability, while good, definitely needs some team coordination to capitalize on. The EMP inflicts 50 damage on opponent's shield health within range, and unless you're preparing for an EMP push with your squad, it serves as ineffective damage. I think you'll start seeing crypto played more and more, especially in competitive Apex, but definitely not the most user-friendly and takes a lot of commitment to master his playstyle. Starting off the A tier, I have Wraith. Wraith mains rejoice. She got a buff this season. Max portal distance on her ultimate was doubled from a max distance of 76 meters to 152 meters, and her speed increases over time when creating longer portals. That's honestly huge because she wasn't very viable on larger maps with wide open spaces like Broken Moon and Stormpoint. But with this buff, Wraith players can really help out their team by safely getting them from point A to point B and out of bad situations. Plus, it can make for some crazy plays and kidnaps. Now I know the Wraith mains will disagree with the notion that she is an S tier, and there's obviously a reason there are so many Wraith mains out there. While her tactical ability is still great for getting yourself out of bad situations and there not really being another ability like it not being instant and having a delay can make for some misexecution and lead to the stock sweaty Wraith disconnecting from a match. All things considered, however, anyone in A tier I perceive as excellent. Wraith is excellent at what she does well. The next legend I have in A tier is the friendly robot himself, Pathfinder. Unlike Wraith or other legends in the skirmisher class, Pathfinder actually benefits greatly from having this perk. Yes, he lost the ability to scan beacon for the next ring. Now you get those benefits immediately by revealing an incoming care package, and it's instant, so it's a lot safer than scanning a beacon. Additionally, his ultimate got a huge buff. The max range being increased by about 60%, and the speed you and your team move at while on the zip was increased by 66%. In my opinion, this is a major and much needed buff to his kit because for a few seasons now the zipline was feeling a little archaic and outclassed. Obviously his grapple is still insane and is a movement ability that's unique to him and allows players to play in a way they wouldn't be able to on any other legend. Unfortunately, he still suffers from having a massive hitbox, otherwise I may have put him in a higher tier. And despite his high skill floor and him being a skill-based legend, he's one of the most fun legends you can main, definitely worth running. Moving on to the final legend I have in A tier, Bloodhound. Now I've seen some wild takes and people have Bloodhound placed all over, as high as S tier and as low as C or D tier. PSA to anyone who thinks scam meta is gone, it's not. Sorry, it's just not. So long as Bloodhound and Seer exist, wall hacks will always be wall hacks. Bloodhound got a rework to their kit this season with the addition of white ravens that fly in the direction of enemy teams when interacted with. While interesting and definitely some unique macro intel, I might go as far as to say it's slightly outclassed by Ash's passive that gives more specific information based on the location of deaths. Their tactical ability, Eye of the Allfather, was nerfed. Only gives a full body scan for 1 second instead of 3 seconds. And their ultimate, Beast of the Hunt, was reworked but essentially nerfed, because it no longer recharges and speeds up the cooldown of Bloodhound's tactical. I think Respawn took a step in the right direction for the health of Apex by slightly nerfing scan characters, but that being said, Bloodhound is still very strong and very viable. Can't go wrong running them this season. Kicking off my fringe S tier picks in the A+ tier, I have Valkyrie. Some may argue that she should be in S tier, and there's definitely a case to be made in fairness. She's been hit by many nerfs in the past few patches. Her ultimate doesn't launch as high and you can't fly as far. You can't spin around before launching to make yourself and your teammates more difficult targets to hit when enemies are trying to cancel your ult. Her jetpack has more limited fuel, and she can no longer scan beacon because she's in the skirmisher class. Sucks if you're a Valk main, and she's fallen out of the meta just a bit, but in my opinion it's a lot better for the health of the game. But all that being said, she is still a walking jump tower. She has a jetpack, and her Q is like a pseudo arc star. Oh, and I forgot to mention she gets scans on enemies while in her ultimate. Is there anything she can't do? Valk is not insanely overpowered like she used to be, but she is still meta and will remain meta with a very powerful kit. Horizon has been a top tier legend in Apex Legends since her introduction in Season 7. With her unique ability to manipulate gravity and move quickly around the map, she has been a staple pick in competitive play. However, recent changes have shifted her from an S tier to an A+ tier. Specifically, the changes to her tactical ability Gravity Lift have made her slightly less powerful in combat. The increase in weapon spread while using the lift make it harder for her to land accurate shots on enemies, while the increase in vertical speed may make it more difficult to control her movement. While these changes may seem minor, they can have a significant impact on her overall performance, particularly in high-level play, where every advantage counts. Despite this, Horizon remains a powerful pick with a unique skill set that can be devastating in the right hands. I'm now going to talk about the legends I've placed in S tier, which I consider to be unequivocally the best legends in the game this season. The first legend I have in S tier is Seer. Like I mentioned when talking about Bloodhound, I've seen some wild takes and some creators putting Seer as low as C tier, claiming scam meta is dead. The cooldown on his ultimate was increased, His passive ability Heartbeat Sensor was reworked. Audio is now louder to enemy players, the activation is slightly delayed, and the lock-on indication will now only show on heartbeat cadence of the target. Yes, Seer was nerfed and his pick rate is down so far this season. And while I think the reworks to both his and Bloodhound's kits are a step in the right direction for the state of the game, unfortunately, a character that can give his team wall hacks for the duration of a fight will always be a top pick. I think you'll start to see his pick rate gradually rise over time once people realize that he's still slightly busted. The next legend I have in S tier is Newcastle. His passive ability, Retrieve the Wounded, allows you to res your down teammates with a revive shield and move them to safety. Sorry, Lifeline mains. His tactical ability is a mobile shield that can be controlled and moved around, and it offers unique utility in my opinion because it is so versatile. It can be used both defensively and offensively. And his ultimate ability allows you to leap to a location and place down a wall of cover, and this can be used creatively, either to protect a member of your squad that is in danger, take a position of power, or to get yourself out of a bad situation quickly. Being able to create cover is so valuable on any map, especially when fighting in areas with minimal cover, and that can't be overlooked. He's in the support class, so he has the ability to craft teammate banners, and he benefits from the Fortified perk, taking 15% less damage and not being slowed by bullets. While his skill floor is high and can be difficult to learn to play, he's literally an Avenger with all the abilities that he has. We're all guilty of thinking damage output and total kills is what determines someone's skill or determines overall performance in a match. Success isn't solely defined by those metrics. If you want to affect the game in a different way, Newcastle is one of the strongest choices in the roster by far. In a meta that values playing fast and getting eliminations, Mad Maggie is easily an S tier pick. I feel like she's been on the verge of being a staple meta pick for a few seasons now, but this may finally be her time. Her kit is pretty crazy. Her passive ability lets her run with a shotgun out with no movement penalty, and not only that, she gets a speed boost on her ADS with shotguns. Another passive ability she has is that she gets a highlight on damaged enemies for 0.8 seconds, which is a pseudo wall hack right there. This really aids and benefits her tactical ability Riot Drill, which allows you to launch and attach a drill to an obstacle and burn enemies on the other side. Pretty much like a super versatile thermite. Her ultimate ability Wrecking Ball releases speed boosting paths that increase movement speed by 30% for 3 seconds and detonates near enemies. That's slightly better than Bangalore's Double Time, which only gives her a speed boost for 2 seconds, and it can be utilized both offensively, defensively, or even as a rotation tool. If you haven't tried her yet, I really encourage you to. And if her quips are annoying to you like they are to me, you do have the option to lower the volume on character dialogue or turn it off completely. Altogether, Mad Maggie's kit promotes a really fun playstyle that is really strong right now. The next legend I have in S tier is the loot queen herself, Loba. Loot goblins rejoice! Sometimes I wonder if we're playing a looting game or a shooting game, but the utility of her passive ability, Eye for Quality, which allows you to see concealed epic and legendary items in her black market, can't be denied. A competitive advantage is a competitive advantage, and having a better weapon or a better shield than your opponent is a huge advantage. Her tactical ability allows her to throw her bracelet to take different angles, push opponents, or escape quickly in fights. And being that she's in the support class and able to craft teammate banners, she's definitely an S tier pick this season in my opinion. And if you're someone who primarily solo queues, she might be the best option for you because of what her kit offers. Some may argue though that her utility decreases as the match goes on, but always being able to restock ammo, grenades, and being able to remotely steal care package items and weapons can be huge for turning the tide of a match. All that being said, it's also so easy to tell a good Loba from a bad one. We have all played with a random Loba that prioritizes looting at the worst times and even plays and loots ultra selfishly. My advice to the Loba mains out there that will really take you from mediocre to great is to use her kit, not as a tool to be a loot goblin, but a means to loot very quickly and start fighting so you can flex the competitive advantage of having better loot than your opponents. Food for thought. Ah yes, the moment we've all been waiting for. Who would have thought? Not me. Shout out my haters and not biased at all. Arguably the best legend in the game right now is Bangalore. Perpetually B tier and the most balanced legend in the game is now arguably the best? Yes. She's the best legend in the assault class, which is arguably the best perk, being able to carry 20 extra ammo per inventory slot and having access to assault bins around the map. Why is the assault perk arguably the best perk, you might ask? Because from the moment the match starts, you're using it, and you're using it for the entirety of the match. It's not situational, and you never have to think about it. With Gibby being nerfed out of the meta, and in a competitive landscape that promotes playing aggressively, she takes on some of his responsibilities on a squad, with her smoke serving as cover for teammates, and her ultimate ability, Rolling Thunder, serving primarily as a very useful third-party deterrent. But as we all know, her bread and butter is her passive ability, Double Time, which is arguably the best passive in the game, and really gives you major advantages both in fights and as an escape tool. It activates while sprinting and when bullets or grenades hit or barely miss you, granting a 30% speed boost for 2 seconds. On the surface, she's a pretty easy legend to play with a straightforward kit. But it might be the easiest to tell a good Bangalore from a bad one, and Bangalore mains get a bad rap because of people who don't use their kit correctly. It's easy to blind your teammates with your smoke if they don't have digital threats, stun or prevent pushes by misusing your ult offensively, or just get knocked first because you think Double Time will save you from all threats. Without going in great detail, my advice to anyone playing Bangalore this season would be to be very communicative with your teammates. Let them know if and when you're using your smoke, if and when you're throwing your ult, and if there's an incoming Bangalore ult, let them know it isn't yours. Overall, she's incredibly versatile, fits a variety of playstyles, and is one of the most fun legends to play. Let me know in the comments if you're a fellow Bangalore main. If you made it this far in the video, thank you so much for watching. Remember that the meta is always changing in Apex Legends, and if your main isn't widely accepted as a meta legend right now, don't worry, your time will come. My advice to you is to play who's fun and play who you like. Any legend is S tier in the right hands. Let me know in the comments who you're maining this season and what your ideal team comp is. I hope this tier list helps you, and I'll see you in the next one.
They just